I
think we're live.
Okay. Hey everyone, welcome to the Node.js Foundation website redesign initiative, meeting on the 1st of March 2018. Do we want to do roll call? We haven't done a roll call yet in our previous two meetings. I don't know if we want to start now.
We could probably just do a quick name for attendance.
Yeah, let's do that. Oh no, actually, I think we have done roll call, just like short roll call, just everyone say a name, pretty much. Okay. I'll start. My name's Olivia. I'm the community committee champion of this initiative. And Tierney.
I'm Tierney Cyren. I'm co-chair of the community committee.
And Adam.
My name's Adam Miller. Active and loving participant of the website redesign initiative.
Okay, Darcy.
I'm darcyclarke, also participant and helping out with this initiative.
Okay, Francisco.
Hi, I'm Francisco. I've been using Node for a while and I really like it, so I'm trying to help a bit.
Okay, and Manil.
Hi, I'm Manil. I'm participating in the website redesign initiative.
Okay, cool. So we have, I think, a pretty good agenda today. Let's get started with, I think, the part that has gotten the most action in the last 2 weeks. Which is the website wireframes. And since you, Adam, actually kind of like made this and posted the issue regarding it, why don't you like explain a little bit, just for context?
Would be happy to. So we left the last meeting with an action item to hopefully by next meeting have wireframes up that we were able to discuss in a few weeks in between. And I noticed that there wasn't any momentum on it, so I decided to take it upon myself to go and take a first pass at it, just get something up there that we can look at. It's just something tactile that we can actually see and comment on. And sure enough, when I put it all together and stuck it up on InVision and posted it, in a GitHub issue as a first pass at wireframes and open for comments, there's a lot of activity on it, which is awesome. I think always having something visual for these types of things always helps to increase engagement. So we definitely got a lot of comments on this first pass of wireframe. And I'm going to have time this Saturday to go in and start synthesizing some of the feedback and hopefully end of this weekend have a second iteration on it that we can post again and keep the discussion going. There are a lot of outstanding questions on the issue. It's issue number 15 on the website redesign for anybody streaming and following along.
Let me post it in the chat too. Context.
There's a whole lot of really nitty-gritty questions that came out of it, which are probably not the best use of our time to discuss here. Happy to dig into some of them if people feel the need to, but otherwise, yeah, I'm excited to keep iterating on the wireframes.
Okay.
So I'm glad you actually made it clear in the issue. I think in one or two responses was that it's not necessarily design implementation. It seems like one kind of like that's just what people assume. But it is a wireframe and IA implementation. I had several people reach out to me asking, "Are we doing design already?" And the answer is no. This is right. That stage, the stage right now is still IA. We're just implementing that, kind of getting feedback on it.
So maybe
the intent of it is very broad strokes, IA, general site structure, and like these very broad user experiences for site flow. So no, the website will not be blue.
I totally understand that because many times I cannot really see it until I see a physical design. So I think it's a good idea to start with a wireframe, even if it's going to be rewritten or something.
Yeah, I'm wondering also like if in previous discussions there been talks about doing things like creating user personas, doing information gathering and getting like analytics information for like what pieces of content are most widely used, and generally maybe taking feedback from what I would normally do in the real world is like asking the client essentially what are key features that are sort of required. Because then this would probably dictate also like content structure, which I think was, I think the right next pass. I think a lot of people were confused maybe in that thread because it is a very, I would say, high fidelity wireframe. So although I totally think it's great that we're sharing like design sort of where things are going to lay out, I guess, maybe also prioritizing content and discovery of what is actually important or what users actually need will help dictate, what links go where and what content we should be bubbling up on something like the homepage, etc.
Yeah, those are 2 points I actually did want to bring up. The largest point of discussion was around how the download CTA, call to action on the homepage, functions, and then how it works and what the layout is of the current releases page, and if that format works, if there's a better format. I think making some user personas, maybe getting a few users who fit into those personas that we're targeting, and seeing their responses to the flow layout here to just get some feedback on how they want the experience to be. And then set up like maybe 3 variants based on the feedback, and just see which one they're most successful with. Just clicking through a slightly interactive wireframe, because it sounds like from the discussion there's not a consensus on how to lay out that download flow and that installation flow. And there's still some resolution that needs to happen between, are we still providing downloads, or download via package manager, installation via package manager, the primary way to install node that we want to promote, and that's something that the technical CSC or the releases committee needs to provide some guidance on still.
Do you have any analytics around that? Like any data around how many people click through to that link right now?
Tierney,
so
yeah,
I can talk to that a bit. We have analytics. This group doesn't necessarily have access to those instantly. I am happy to reach out to Zibby Keaton of the Node.js Foundation, who kind of manages that, to see if she can either share access or share context. So share screenshots of specific bits that we're interested in. I don't think they have a problem sharing access to it. Sharing the context and sharing the numbers. It's just, it allows access to other things that are critical to the foundation in terms of RBAC type stuff. So I don't know if they would be able to easily do that directly, but we can, they've always been extremely open and willing to help, especially with website stuff, since they also want to see a redesign happen.
So would they be open to giving us a overall sort of pie chart or breakdown percentage-wise and versus pure traffic numbers to the existing pages?
For sure.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm kind of looking for, because then that will help us make decisions about, what is important to, drive traffic to, or to make easier to get to.
Yeah, I would maybe caution a little bit against putting a lot of weight in that and not doing further user exploration.
Sure.
The current website doesn't handle some use cases and a lot of content that we're thinking about laying out, so it might misguide us, because it's not some stuff we're working on is not even there.
Sure. So again,
a good balance of both would be good.
So I guess what I didn't see, and I was trying to play catch up looking through the GitHub issues, is I didn't see what those things were that we were trying to achieve, right? Are we trying to facilitate more downloads? Or are we trying to facilitate learning more? So do we have an outline of the things that we're trying to drive? And then, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if we necessarily defined out specific goals, in terms of okay, this is the path we want to, we didn't drive kind of personas, basically. The goal that we laid out, as far as I can tell, please anyone correct me if I'm wrong, was a clearer navigation hierarchy that actually surfaces everything. There's quite a few things that haven't been surfaced in terms of like resources that the website provides that actually aren't shared, and also restructuring a bit because the website currently has kind of exists as 2 or 3 years of additions without kind of trying to figure out where those additions should go. So actually making sure the content is structured in a logical way, rather than 2 years down the line, the same thing being tacked on in a different place. So that's kind of the goal, as far as I know, is refactoring a little bit in terms of content. And please, anyone correct me if I'm incorrect on that.
Let's definitely open up a user personas ticket and like a high level priorities ticket. I think we all have an idea of what the priorities are, and I feel like from past discussions they're pretty in sync. But it would be good to codify that, definitely.
Okay. So one of the sort of things we discussed in the issue is surfacing this to other places, not only our group, but also the ComCom, which I think I've added the ComCom. I've added it to the agenda or something for our next ComCom meeting. Something like that. But then also the TSC and obviously the website working group, which doesn't have meetings as far as I know. But a lot of people from the website working group, I think, have given their input on this, which is good. I don't know how the TSC, we don't have anyone from the TSC here, so I don't know if they have kind of had their eye on it. I know Miles has replied.
I know Jeremiah has been participating in this, and
he's
replied
true
as well.
Yeah, as for when and how to surface it, I would love to get a second pass at doing a revised wireframe layout, since there's a lot of good feedback there already, and then bring that improved wireframe to a larger group. I think there's a lot of actionable tasks there to work on. So possibly by next week or the week after, we'll be able to surface it elsewhere.
Okay, that's cool, because the ComCom meeting is next in 1 week.
Yeah.
So that
I will.
Okay, cool. All right. Anything else that we could not discuss just in the issue on the wireframe itself?
I had one more comment about content and actual like hashing out, diving into content stuff. But I think it's addressed in, I believe on the agenda is the getting started with Node.js ticket. It's kind of related to that. I'd love to in a second pass get more detailed content for that. So we'll talk about that later. Okay, cool. Yeah.
If no one else has anything, we'll move on to the voice and tone guidelines ticket, which is, I'm saying ticket, it's an issue. It's issue number 13, but I think related to this is pull request number 14, which I'm going to link, which is Manil's write up for a basic sort of tone and voice thingy. Manil, I don't know if you want to like give any more information about this. I don't know who here has like. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that it was submitted about a week ago, I think, and since then I've gotten some pretty good feedback. Thanks, Olivia, and from another person as well, and Francisco. Yeah, thank you. And I've used that to kind of update it a bit, and if it needs further work, I'm going to continue to do that. We can discuss that now and see how people feel about it. I don't know if people have had a chance to read it yet.
I haven't, sorry.
Yeah, I was putting it aside to have another look at it on the weekend.
Yeah, same.
I would definitely like encourage anyone from this group to have a look at it, though. More feedback's always good.
So the point of this one, it seemed like we wanted this to inform the content that we were going to write for the website redesign initiative. Yes. So that's the scope. I'm just wondering if the scope has changed since then.
I
think-
don't believe so.
Yeah.
I
I
think
mean,
that's
maybe
still a good
the
scope.
scope's a bit more broad than that. Maybe it's not only the website redesign, but also anything that follows after.
Yeah, I think we should prepare the document as though it could be used by a larger group. And if other teams choose to adopt it as their voice and tone guideline for any content that they write, that would be wonderful. And we can actually propose to shop it around to other teams, the TSC for when they're writing documentation, or whoever else may need it. But for now, I think the website redesign would be the good test bed for this to help give it a platform to launch to a larger audience. One thing that I think we should maybe make clear in the voice and tone document is the use of humor and recommended voicing for that. I know whenever I'm drafting website copy or website content, I tend to err on the side of casual and funny, or I attempt to. And you can kind of see that on the releases page of the wireframe where I describe LTS, current, and nightly. So I don't know how the rest of the community feels about that as a tone for the website. I know I quite enjoy it, but I also realize that it's some may not see it as the most professional. But just a discussion around that might be good to have around voice and tone.
I think I don't really mind about professionalism, but the thing is, like, different people will have different kind of humor, and mixing them together might create some conflict.
Right, and the thing. So I think it would, I think adding a section in humor is probably good to mention explicitly, define it explicitly. But I think humor is generally okay as long as there's not an objection, because even in addition to different types of humor, there's different types of humor across the world, and something that may be humorous in one area may not come across as humorous at all in 5,000 miles away, and so that's more where I would be concerned rather than individual humor. It'd be more cultural humor. That's where I would be concerned, especially if something that is like I know in certain South American countries, gender and race is kind of a normal humorous subject that really doesn't fit along with what we are trying to push with Node.js, and having it be an inclusive and diverse environment. So we have to make sure to define. We don't want to be U.S. centric, but we just need to make sure it's if it falls in line with the greater message of the Node.js community and the project, and then there's no objections. I think is generally a good way to do it, and be willing to change it if there are later.
And that might actually be a really good topic to bring up with the new internationalization working group. Voice and tone for international translations.
For sure.
And if humor doesn't translate, what is the fallback? How do you translate that?
So I actually think it might be worth mentioning the internationalization working group in that issue, like pinging them to get their feedback in addition. Maybe once we've started to add that section in, though.
I mean, I'm living in Japan, and the kind of humor here is totally different. Like, the kind of jokes we do in Western countries, they don't really translate. So that might also be an issue.
And so is it okay for the translation teams to change the humor to make it work better in a different locale, as long as the intent is there still? I don't know if that's something we should sanction or.
I think we're just gonna have to bring them in and ask, and kind of get their input on that.
Yeah, I do think there is value in keeping humor as a core tenet on the voice and tone for the site. Like it's a very inviting way to get other people involved and feel like they're part of the community. As just a first touch point, they feel welcome if you do it right. So that would just be my 2 cents on humor.
Yeah. I think I don't want to like elongate this discussion, but like my take on that is it's always, to me personally, it's kind of weird when sort of a big corporate entity has like this, tries to be like relatable. Like it's like, I don't know if this would fall into that same category, but I think if you do it wrong, it could very well be, and it could potentially alienate a lot of, I think, especially young people, because I know there's a lot of people who have that same view as I do. I don't know. That's just my.
No, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I think there's definitely a very fine line that you can cross very quickly.
I think
and
it really depends also on the kind of design, the graphics, and everything.
Maybe then that's why it's worth it for us to iron out exactly what we feel about humor, so there's a consistency across that instead of people individually bringing out their sense of humor.
So I would go back to my original comment about creating user personas, like who is it that comes to the website, who is it that comes to the conferences and watches somebody give a presentation, and how did they present that. Once we figure out what the audience is, then you can really tell whether or not they would be open to any, a different kind of tone than matter of fact. I would err on the side of let's just be matter of fact to play it safe. I think there's enough content and enough information to fill a football stadium, if that's humor. But I think that again, it can be off-putting if you don't have the same sense of humor as the organization that's trying to make a joke or something. I think we can try to define that kind of thing, but I don't think you can until you actually know who the audience is. And if it's a mixed audience, then you should always err on the side of being more professional.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and we may also see, as we draft full copy, the voice and tone of the site, the details of the voice and tone of the site evolve and change as we realize what's needed and what's wanted. I think a lot of this we won't know until we start drafting copy.
And it may change also depending on which part of the website you're on. So if you're like inside of getting involved or contributing, potentially you can have different tone for that type of audience, right? Compared to somebody that wants to know about the security risks that might have bubbled up and why there's a patch to a node, So
I think that's already explained the current draft of the document that Manil proposes, if I recall correctly. But yeah, that's okay. I'm gonna kind of time box this here, unless anyone has anything. Okay. Then let's move on to issue number 12, which is the tech exploration for in-browser node playground, which is something that we've discussed, which is basically sort of, we have on the website, preferably on the main site, we have a little sort of console/editor with which you can sort of test the capabilities of Node, which should ideally run in browser. And I believe Adam has been researching some stuff, but then we also have a reply from Jen Schiffer, who works for Glitch, whom I also know. And I know Glitch, so I can maybe give a little bit of context for that. I haven't used it in an embedded setting, but I think what she proposes, if I can maybe just link the issue here, is very interesting and could potentially, like, we would have to try it out, but it would be interesting, definitely. So
yeah, I kind of, so over the run kit for me came up over the past week, actually, well, over the past few days, because of some other stuff I'm doing. And that's what NPM embeds is, like a module playground by default. That said, I think I'm sad I didn't even consider it earlier. Glitch is probably a little bit of a better solution, especially because of how focused they are on Node. I've been consistently impressed by how they build out small little bits of tooling to help get people up and running, even with things that aren't necessarily getting started, but like security or Node versioning. So I do think Glitch would probably be a very good choice if we used, if we decide to do an existing runnable scripts version.
Yeah.
I have a question. Do we want the script running on the homepage, or do we want it on the Learn page? Because I think in the Learn page it might be really useful, at least with examples or something.
Yeah, I think there's definitely value in both.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Glitch also is very extremely focused on getting newcomers into Node.js, which kind of correlates with what we want to do. So I think maybe it would be beneficial to have a steady connection to people like Jen, just for the cause of development, so we can maybe try and coordinate and see how we can use Glitch in the best way.
Yeah. So I actually replied to the original thread on this. I think it was the which number here? I think number 9. Yeah. And so a couple of days ago about RunKit, because I had been looking into this for Node School websites. So I run the Toronto Node School chapter here, and I wanted an easy way to embed and show examples of the just basic Node practices. And so I did a lot of investigation into different embeddable runtimes, and RunKit, I would say, was by far the best, including Glitch. Unfortunately, Jen notes that they have console output, but that's only in the website. The embedded script doesn't actually have the console. And actually, the focus is more on applications, so larger applications. So they have things like a side panel with assets and files, whereas RunKit, again, is a more streamlined, pared down, and has a few other options to dynamically create these embeddable scripts, whereas you would have to actually go to Glitch and create the piece of code before actually embedding it. So again, I think there's just a lot of pros and cons to either or. I would definitely be willing to work with Glitch to maybe get some of the features that I would expect from embedded runtime on something as big as the Node website. But I think ideally I would prefer to go with actually RunKit over anything else, including Code Sandbox and other embeddables that I found. Also, it's got a great switcher between Node versions right embedded in the embed script. I linked an example for everybody in the chat.
Yeah, taking a look at both, they do both look like viable options. I'd love to see like a pro cons for each one, do an actual review of features. Yeah, I think as long as we pick something and invest in it and make sure it's going to work long term for us, it doesn't. We'd be able to make both work. So it's nitty gritty details at the end of the day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can like see how embedding Glitch stuff works, like how far they've developed the embed technology, and if it kind of matches what we need, can like do a JS fiddle or something.
Does RunKit have a notion of multiple files? Because something that it looks like Glitch does well is it does let you like spin up a server, right? And it does let you read files from quote unquote disk.
That's sort of
so more advanced examples with like file system interfaces.
Yeah,
to demonstrate on there.
They do have the ability to create endpoints, so almost like serverless type endpoints. So, and then you just require require that. And actually, the require is super easy. It's all sort of done in the back end, so you don't really see the actual package JSON files or directory structure, which I think is better for tutorials, unless you want to go more in depth with full-blown applications, which I think goes a little bit beyond the scope of a lot of the examples in what I would guess would be the primary docs and APIs.
I agree with that.
Let's get someone to offline do a full feature review of both, and we can maybe discuss next time after we maybe have a little bit of getting started content.
Totally.
Getting started content to actually see which one will better fit our needs.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Francisca, did you want to say anything?
Oh no, well, the person who is making the judgment, the comparison, what is this based on? Like, what's the objective of the code running? I think it's important to determine that to compare them properly.
So I think there's a feature space that either one of these projects will attempt to fill, and that there's only so many features that you can pack into a Node embeddable editor. And I think the presence or absence of any of those features in that feature space will be important depending on the type of content. I think we can probably do a review of both products without necessarily knowing the content we want to present, while at the same time developing content, and then we can bring both to the table and say, okay, which one fits what we actually want to make better. So I think they can be done in tandem or at the same time. Okay. If anybody doesn't think so, then yeah, please chime in. I'm not married to any idea here. So.
Okay. So the sort of, I think we can pull an action item from this is for someone to try and compare them, or someone to set up like a test environment in which we can run glitch.
I have a lot of this already. If I can just compile all the examples that I've done before and put together who has what, I guess.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
So if you could post that in the issue or something, and then we can compare them. Okay, cool.
I would like to add, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. One last thing I'd like to add is that, I think even once we do have that, we really do need to define what the things that matter to us are, what the features we need are, and what the features that are nice to have are. And whichever platform has the features that we need, has the majority or all of the features we need, is probably the one we should go with.
Agreed. So, yeah, let's keep it empirical for how we choose the platforms.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to issue number 9, which we have quickly touched upon earlier, which is getting started with Node, which I'm going to link. And this was actually started by Dhruv, who's not here. Oh no, they are in the attendees.
Okay, I will promote them.
So
I've promoted them. They should be joining panelists shortly here. There you go.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's see. Okay.
Unfortunately, don't know how to pronounce your name.
Hi. Hello.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Dhruv Jain. I'm the kind of newest member to this team. I'm a very new to the Node.js community.
Awesome. Welcome to the web redesign initiative.
Web redesign.
Okay, so we're just talking about the getting started with Node issue, which is not on our agenda, and you made that issue. So do you want to? I mean, have we talked about this before in a meeting?
Actually touched on it in a meeting before, but it was very quick. Sorry.
Okay. Go ahead.
Actually, this issue was also in agenda for the last meeting, but I was not present in the last meeting, unfortunately. So, what was the basic motto behind getting started with Node? It's just actually showing any new user or any other user to Node or any other new developer to Node how to install Node, how to run any Node application, and how to build any Node application from scratch. Because as a developer, I feel it is very essential to know how to use any new, or how to learn any new framework, any library, or any other programming language. So I suggest we should add a more elaborative getting started section on the website.
I agree.
Yeah, so this is a little bit, again, touched on in the wireframe, and I actually have a call out saying, hey, this is a bunch of placeholder content. I have no idea what's going to go here. On the Learn page, there's a quick start section where I made some made up headers for what is Node.js, installing Node.js, hello world server, modules, but I love the idea of like a learning path type of feature on the site. Like if you start at point A and get to point Z, you will know the basics of Node.js and you will be set up and started to continue exploring. So I love the idea, and I see the huge need for the content. I think we need somebody to just go and write it, get a first draft out there that we can iterate on.
What's the relationship with Node School and the Node Foundation at this point?
Node School is, you mean like official relation between Node School and the Node Foundation? Not related at all.
Yeah, I can speak to a little bit to that. So one of the original reasons the ComCom was created was to kind of help try to organize efforts like that a little bit better. I don't think we ever really got representation from them, just because we didn't really do outreach and they didn't come to us, which was the initial expectation that clearly didn't pan out. So there's no official relationship, I don't think. That said, there's ample numbers of Node School runners, not
workshoppers.
Yes. Well, no. The mentors.
Oh, mentors. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Participate in the project, and I don't think there'd be any reason for us not to reach out, especially with this, on the horizon. So I'd definitely be interested in, what you were thinking of, Darcy.
Yeah, so I'm actually working on, again, like a redesign of the Node School Toronto website, which ties in sort of at a network level with Node School itself. And of course, we also want to link back to the actual Node docs so that people that are learning to code in Node, they can have a quick reference to that entire sort of network, right? So I consider it or liken it to having a network bar at the very top of your navigation, and then having more local navigation for the website or organization specifically. So that it sort of goes network, channel, product, if you can think of that in terms of terminology I use to talk about navigation. And so when I was doing this discovery, I was trying to meld these three organizations together: my local Node School organization with the Node School workshoppers that we use to teach people, also that then associate themselves with the Node documentation, and expect anybody that's an attendee to be using to complete these workshops. So I was just wondering if there's a way potentially, I guess, within the getting started or some sort of handoff that could happen, or even just a tighter relationship could be established between the Node.js and I guess this website and the work that's being done all over the world with Node School. Yeah.
So I can give a little explanation to this because I'm the organizer of Node School Berlin and also a sort of core workshopper maintainer. And I think that if you do anything, definitely the first step that needs to be done is to get a tight relationship between Node School and Node, like the Node Project Foundation. because a lot of the workshoppers are not only unmaintained, which is one problem, but also outdated, like very outdated, like Node version 4 outdated. So there's a couple, the core workshoppers like Learn Your Node and JavaScripting are essentially pretty well maintained. But then there's, it's open source project, so nobody's getting paid for it. So it's all very coincidental whether it's maintained or not. And I think it would be nice if we had a couple of workshoppers that we took sort of under our wing, that we provided sort of an official maintainer, a maintained status, a stability status or whatever. I think that would be a start. And maybe then we could kind of link it in an official capacity on the website.
Yeah, I think that would be really important because I've been to a number of Node conferences and I've seen representatives use the numbers from Node School, use the number of meetups that are happening, and basically using our stats to pump the tires of Node and saying how good a job it's embracing basically that we're helping popularize Node in our local communities, and yet I don't see like money trickling down to support those workshoppers. So
it's definitely not a lack of interest; it's a lack of connection. I think there's many people who are interested in having more of an official relationship. It's just that there's not been a path created to do that. And not like it's just like I personally have no idea how we would even go about doing that because I don't know who really maintains a lot of the Node School stuff. And I'm sure there are members of the community committee and the TSC who do, but we just haven't had those discussions, and that's really I think what needs to happen for us to be able to push forward on that.
I just don't want to duplicate efforts, and I think that this ties in great with getting started and maybe next steps. It would also ensure that we don't completely alienate an entire group of folks that are already doing this work.
I would be sad and a little surprised if we had to write all this content from scratch. I love the idea of using this as a catalyst for getting in closer connection with Node School as a project and all the contributors there. Do we need to have like it sounds like we've spent a lot of time chatting about this connection between Node and Node School. Do we need to have like a dedicated small group of outreach to it, or like what's the path forward here to help forge those connections?
Yeah, that's definitely a thing we should try and scope out.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone has an explicit answer to that right now. So yeah, that's what we have to figure out.
I'm going to open a new issue for that, just to kind of explore. Okay. Is there anything else regarding this? Okay. Then let's move on. We have an issue from the community committee repository, which is issue number 242, which is about updating the official messaging on Node.js, which Tierney actually brought up. So go ahead.
Give me 1 second to open it because I've lost context on this. So there's been some variation of the one messaging, like bit of messaging on the Node.js homepage for quite a while. I believe we discussed this last meeting as well. But I do think it's just something that we should keep in mind. That that messaging is probably something we're going to need to address, either continue it, adopt, or not adopt it, adjust it, or completely rewrite it. And honestly, I'm in favor of completely rewriting it because it's so thick that it's not really it's good for a technical person who's coming to the website and trying to figure out what Node is. It's not good for basically anyone else. So anyone who's trying to actually figure out what a node is, but might not know certain terminology that's used in there already. So that's just kind of something that we should keep on the radar and probably can finalize once it's once we're kind of in the content buildings phase rather than the content definition phase. So yeah, I think that's really just the last thing.
I think if there was any or if there will be any consensus to come from this, will sort of be the organ that actually makes the changes, right? Because I mean, we are in charge of redoing the website. So,
does anyone think that there's harm in starting to workshop this now? Like, should we open a ticket for brainstorming and iterating on new?
I think we should, but not in the website redesign repository.
Okay.
Because it's such a huge scope. I think it might be better to open it in admin.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I do want to ask, do we think we're kind of at the point where we've hit, okay, we're done doing basic IA? Can we start moving on a little bit?
I personally think so. From the work that's been done on the structure side, the initial site structure ticket, and I think there might be value in codifying what we've already done, because I think a lot has just been in passing conversation or in common threads that might not be surfaced well. So I might be, because I've been involved in most of the conversations, I might be oddly confident in the direction it's heading. And so I want to hear what other people think. But I personally think we're ready to start iterating on small bits of content that we absolutely know we're going to need, like getting started or this headline.
Yeah, me too.
I would also agree. Sorry, go ahead, Darcy.
Can we centralize like any and all of this? Like typically there would be some sort of like document created from this. And I know that Adam, you did an amazing blog post about just initial redesign thinking. Even pulling some of that stuff into some sort of like research folder and just putting a bunch of documents into that, I think would help. Comment, like having threads, reading through threads isn't that helpful. If there isn't hard. If there's a final outcome, it'd be nice to have like a distinct guide. But yeah, even I'm okay with building like a document that like just, is the IA doc. And what I guess I would be just a little bit hesitant because to move forward, just because I haven't seen some of the things like any data around existing content, any needs analysis or anything like that, or from, I guess the groups that would have final sign off on design, I guess, or what we are highlighting on homepages, etc. And also, like, I haven't seen user personas or like showing that we are actually thinking about the audiences that we care about here.
Mm-hmm.
So
Darcy, if you could get the bones for a document like that started and throw it up in a PR, I think that would be an awesome place to start. On that. I agree that we projects like these, it's really hard to keep everybody on the same page, especially if it's spread out across common threads.
Yeah.
And since everything is so interconnected, everything we're talking about, I agree. We definitely need that type of document.
And additionally, I think like if you even just set up like the framework of how that could be structured without even adding content, unless you have content you'd specifically like to add, like his article, like Adam's article. I think we can all start going in and PRing things into that doc, because I think there's context that we all have that we can go add in and like make sure it's fulfilled, basically.
Yeah, it would be awesome to, if anybody joins the conversation a little later, just point into the document and say it's all there. You can get updated by reading it. Come chat and be involved in the conversation.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
I think for targeted areas of the site, I think we're ready to start iterating on content. I agree. Like we can't like draft the whole homepage right now. I don't think we're at a point for that, since we don't know what we exactly need on there. But for large, chunks of the site, the getting started, learning path, and that main headline on the site, I think we can safely start iterating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Yeah, okay.
And Adam, would you be open to doing some, I guess, wireframe tennis at some point?
Yeah, totally. No, I'm happy to share the source files around. I did it all in Sketch. So if anybody wants the source files to play with, just let me know. Like
Awesome.
I said in the ticket, we'll have to coordinate about passing the source files back and forth and who works on what when. But yeah, totally happy to.
Is it possible to host that somewhere again where anybody could get access to that and just generally developing it, I guess, in the open? Right?
Yeah, I can. I guess can I just upload this thing to GitHub somewhere?
Feel free. Yeah.
Do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think many of us have Sketch. Like at least I don't. But I can probably go and get it.
It's. I believe they have a free trial period that you get. It's fully featured, and it's also one of the lowest cost enterprise design softwares out there. So hopefully it's a lower barrier than Photoshop or XD or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something to just pay attention to. Like, I think we should always be converging on a single wireframe for like large mass evaluation, or maybe like one or two variants of certain pages. So we'll keep that coordination in the GitHub comments.
Yep.
Make sure we keep consolidating on one software.
In the interest of cleaning up our issues, the issue number 4, where we were talking about site content and content structure, can we say that's evolved into issue number 15, website wireframes? So just if we could focus this discussion, it feels like it might make sense, but I'm not sure if.
Yes, I think so. Are you talking about issue 4? Sorry.
Yeah, issue 4, which eventually led to issue 15. I'm just wondering if we need 2 to discuss pretty similar things.
So I do think that there's separate bits of information. Like one is the actual proposed structure and the other is the wireframe. They go hand in hand. I don't know if one supersedes or if 15 supersedes 4.
I would say they can exist in parallel, and if maybe we can kind of merge some of the things we get from 14 back into 4.
Yeah.
Eventually, I would keep it open.
I think something that we might be able to do is just go cross-link those from the original posts. If, like, say, okay, we're discussing the kind of implementation in 15, and we're discussing the actual, like, documented structure in 4, and link that from each, just to have that context. I do think they are distinct.
We may even want to split out some of the issues, like the meteor issues that have been brought up in 15, into their own separate issue threads, because it's getting a little gnarly in there.
Yeah.
I kind of like having I enjoyed having that single issue format for like, hey, here's the next iteration of the wireframe, everybody pile on. But after, I think the discussion gets a little too meaty after people give their feedback, a little multi-threaded. So I think I might recommend splitting this out into other issues. And maybe for the next iteration of the wireframe where we want more feedback, we'll open a separate issue for that and start a new everybody pile on comment thread.
Yeah.
Otherwise it'll get a little long.
I guess just in the interest of time, I want to touch on what Tierney said also in terms of timing of this meeting. And I'd love to know if there was a regular cadence, if we can maybe even bump that up to weekly, if that would work for some folks.
So there's a regular cadence of every 2 weeks. We have 2 more attendees, by the way. Oh no, it just doesn't show anything. There's a current cadence of every 2 weeks at this time, which was in discussion, is a little early for folks who live on the west coast of America. Like, It's what time? Like 6 a.m. or something? 7 a.m.
It's 7 a.m., but it's
7
fun to
a.m.
be awake for that time.
Yeah.
I'd actually like to chime in on this one. It's not that I'm not awake at this time. It's the fact that as a parent, this is when I'm getting kids ready for school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and so I mean, like honestly, I kind of was asleep till not long before this meeting.
I woke up a half hour before.
Yeah, well, and I'm on the East Coast, so that's a little more heinous.
Okay.
But yeah, so like, I mean, that's not what I normally do, but that's something we should definitely work toward. I know Adam and Jonah are on the East Coast or the West Coast. Darcy, are you also? Or are you back in Toronto?
I'm in Toronto
for
now.
Yeah. So what would an hour later work for Jonah and Darcy? Or Jonah and Adam?
Yeah, that would be easier on my sleep schedule.
Would that work for you, Jonah?
Yeah, an hour would work. School starts at 8:30, so it's kind of like that weird hour and a half would be the perfect time, but I don't want to make any of these decisions just based off of my schedule.
Yeah, and I know that we do also have an attendee who comes in from Japan, who, it's the other extreme. Would you be able to make it,
yes, but
Jonah?
It's me, Francisco, who is in Japan,
Okay.
but actually this time I won't be able to keep making it. Okay. So even at this time I cannot really join anymore.
Okay.
So
yeah, we're at a weird
it's the same.
So we might want to approach it in a similar way that the TSC does, where it's fluctuating times every other week. But yeah, I don't know. It's a little rough for us because we're so
suck to lose people. Yeah.
Yes. Also, like every 1 hour later would break my timing every second week. No, like every second meeting only, because every second meeting I have another meeting an hour later. No conflict.
So instead of doing it in the morning, what about in the evening? Morning US. What about later in the day, like much later? Like I think 9 p.m. UTC would be 4 p.m. Eastern.
9 p.m. UTC. That would also conflict.
Okay.
No, that would conflict with the meeting I just mentioned. So the earliest time I could do after that is, 18, 19, 20. No, actually 9 p.m. would work, I think.
Would that work for those of you on the West Coast? So
you
1
said 9
p.m.
p.m. UTC, 1 p.m.
Yeah, 1 p.m.
Take a look at my calendar.
Can you repeat that time again?
1 p.m. Pacific.
1 p.m. or 9 p.m.?
So 9 p.m. UTC.
Okay.
I'm talking about the Pacific time equivalent. Would that work for you as well, French? I don't know.
It's 6 a.m. I think maybe yes, because later I will be at work. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would largely work for me, and if I just make a standing event on my calendar, I won't get
Jonah, would that work for you?
That also should work for me as long as I make a standing event.
Okay. So do we want to move to 4 p.m. or 9 p.m. UTC?
Sure.
Any objections?
Nope.
Okay. That seems like the most optimal thing.
Excuse me?
Yep. Hi there.
Hello.
Hi. We can hear you.
Can we get it more earlier? Actually, I am from India, so 9 p.m. UTC is actually 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
That would be bad.
So if we can get it around 7 or 8 UTC?
We think 8 would be working.
That's 3 or 4 a.m. in Japan.
Yeah.
So this current time, I know if it's just I realize that it is in the middle of the getting kids ready for school time, but for me, I don't mind waking up early to make this happen. So I am flexible. It's a nice to have for me. It's not a requirement.
Yeah.
So I'd like to just leave that on the table.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're optimizing for as many people as possible. And I know that's not easy. So yeah,
I could like be completely free if we moved it to another day.
Yeah, I think that might be another. So would someone want to create a doodle? Like I think honestly that's gonna be the best way for us to figure this out is what day has the most available times. Whoever creates it can have full prejudice in times that they're available, and we can go from there. But I think trying to, if there's not an easy time that we can all hit, maybe going through a doodle will probably help us get that time a little bit better.
So can we make an issue and take this
Yes,
offline?
please. Yes.
Yeah, I was saying let's create an issue with this, but should we leave the current meeting time until we figure that out?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless otherwise stated, we're doing this same time 2 weeks from now. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. I think we could probably end now.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for
Thank you.
joining.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.